My name is Paul Ford. I'm 48 years old. I've been working in the digital and technology space for the last 25 years, mostly entrepreneurial in my approach. I spent 15 years working in the IT space for IBM and Compaq before I moved into the digital space, where I started an agency in 1998, which I ran successfully with a couple of business partners. 6 years later, after moving to the UK, I sold the business to 24/7 Real Media. A good win there. Took a year off, started another agency, which was a content-based agency, King Content. Ran that for 6 years with a business partner. Had another successful outcome then when we sold that a year and a half ago to iSentius. So the last 15 years of my life have been in the digital space. Prior to that, the technology space. So my competencies are very much around technology and the digital world. I came across Mark, or he came across me, or we came across each other on an African adventure, which was with William Whitecloud. My wife, Holly Brisley, was connected with William Whitecloud. They agreed to go on an adventure over to Africa, which was called the Soul Safari. There was about 15 of us, 15 or 20 of us that went over there. I met Mark for the first time on that adventure, Soul Safari. We immediately connected. I don't know exactly why we connected. It seemed that we had some sort of spiritual slash sort of, I don't know what it was, but we instantly sort of got this bond. I really like the way Mark thinks and certainly his approach. He's got a really interesting way about him, and we immediately sort of hit it off. And on that safari, we would team up and we would have groups and we would do these things called readings, where we would sort of analyse each other's kind of spiritual sort of ambience, I guess you could say. And I continued to get kind of connected with Mark, and he would be in my group. And yeah, I guess that's how we first met. We kind of on the first day immediately, there was some sort of immediate attraction there from a friendship slash business and level of understanding. And we kind of spent the whole 2 weeks hanging out, and he's quite a funny guy as well. Mark's got a really unique mix of skills, I think, and I think that's I know that was the first thing that attracted me to him, was that I was dealing with somebody who had been successful. Didn't spend a whole bunch of time talking about it, but I did some digging around the edges and realised that this guy's done some pretty interesting stuff. I understand, without going into the detail, that he's been pretty successful from a monetary perspective. He's sold a couple of businesses and done really well, but you wouldn't necessarily know that as soon as you met him. He's very much, his approach is very much about you. And I found that's quite a nice way of starting a friendship, when the person sort of is more interested in you rather than talking about themselves. So I found that to be a really good quality of Mark, was, he doesn't instantaneously come across as some super wealthy guy, if you know what I mean. He's more interested in you than he is talking about himself, and I like that quality in people. Mark has this really rare quality, which a lot don't, which is they have this real ability to understand the commercials of a situation, also the impact on others, but also this real spiritual approach, which is really quite special about him, I think. And I think that combination of having been there and done that from a corporate perspective or from a commercial perspective, like actually run a business, had lots of staff, dealt with big issues, but also looked at people and seen and understood that you can't do it without the people, if you know what I mean, and really get involved in where they're going and what they're about and all those sort of things. And there are people out there that you can just see why they're successful, because they know that they can't do it on their own. It's the people around them. It's the tribe type thing. I'm not going to do this on my own. I can certainly lead you, but it's really about my people that are going to be the thing that gets me there. And I think, again, going back to what I said earlier, he's got that really unique blend of, he's not aggressive. You just know you can see that he knows what he's doing. And he kind of chips away, and he gets the best out of you, and it's this sort of very gentle approach that actually moves mountains. I have a pretty unique position on that one because I did quite a few readings on him in this Soul Safari, and I think the key areas of his genius that I saw was that he has this way of uniquely looking into an individual and seeing what the best things are within them, but also seeing what the worst things are as well. Because if you hide behind not recognizing what those things are, like it's always good to sort of recognize the good things in a person, but if you can't recognize what the bad things are, then you really can't get the most out of them, because often those things that you focus on, which are always positive, end up blowing up in the end, because the world is just not like that. It's kind of like this balance, if you know what I mean. So the real genius I see in Mark is that he sees everything about a person, not just, and we often go into this positive thing all the time, and the world's just not like that. It's this, unless you see that balance, the world just, you got to have problems to go forward, if you know what I mean, right? And I think he has this ability where he's got, it's almost like he kind of thrives on the problem, if you know what I mean. Like, it's easy to go, you're a good bloke, but to be able to go and balance that individual out, or see that problem and go and find the right way to fix it, is really how you get things done and really how you go forward. Laid back, but with this inherent understanding of what's really going on. Like, I know it's like that old example of the duck just swimming across the pond really smoothly, and you're like, geez, that duck looks just so cool, but the legs are going underneath really fast. So although it looks really smooth, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff going on underneath the water, if you know what I mean. I'm a pretty crazy maniac thinker, and there's my wings are flapping. Like the example about the duck, right? I like to have people like him around me because they bring me back down to earth and give me that belief that you don't have to be completely out of control to be in control, if you know what I mean. I've had issues in the past where I've sort of management by chaos, if you know what I mean. Whereas just sort of sitting down and calming down, meditating, just taking it easy and saying, you know what, it's all cool. You know what you're doing. He has that way of dealing with a lot without really showing it. And those sort of people I admire, that are completely in control in out of control situations. So, these days, as I get older, I try and surround myself more with people like that, because you can get a lot more done by being in control without being completely out of control. Because out of control is stress, out of control is anger. It's you just don't behave and you don't get the most out of your day. Mark's one of those guys, I can just see he's very organised, has a lot going on, even though it doesn't seem like he's got a lot going on. The farm is just a good place. I don't know what's going on there. It's just got a really nice feel about it. It's very secluded. It's just a beautiful, leafy green, rolling hills, this beautiful pond and all that sort of stuff. So it's got everything you'd imagine in a kind of an off-site workshop, calm. I mean, if you could picture where you'd like to, put your staff to deal with some big issues, this is the place you want to be, right? It has this crazy calmness to it. I have been there. I have experienced it. I have experienced founders that were at each other's throat, that they got to the farm and suddenly this was not a place for any threats or any danger or any craziness. It just has a really great feel about it. I mean, if you're thinking about doing any off-site work, it is... doing it in a hotel room in a city is just not the place to do it, right? Because there's still that energy. You fly up there, you jump in the car, you get to the farm, that anger, that energy of the city, that pain of intensity from a city is instantly gone, and the thinking just changes straight away. The first time we went there was, again, I didn't know what to expect. We arrived. I thought, wow, seclusion. This is the serenity was unbelievable. We had a difficult challenge on our hands. I went with Mark and Mac. We had a consulting role with a startup. An interesting challenge. We had founders that had some really big issues with each other, and we actually hadn't really understood. I didn't personally understood the seriousness of those issues until we sort of sat down in one of the farmhouses there and sort of just started nutting it out. Mark was the facilitator in that particular session. And we actually had mapped out a couple of hours to sort of get through the personal one-on-one issues, and we were going to go into bigger business issues. But it seemed pretty clear early on that these issues were much bigger than we expected. So, but the one thing about the farm was that, you know, we're sitting in this room and there's windows and there's rolling hills and there's really just this was not a place to really bash each other up. It was like, let's just get the job done. And yeah, having the seclusion and the peacefulness of the farm gave these guys the opportunity to focus on the questions. It gave them the opportunity to not have the noise around them from their staff and just from the anxiety of their own office. And being a startup, there's just so many different things going on. Having them together with just us, just focusing on the issues at hand was just invaluable. And we broke down some serious stuff on that day. Again, it took a little longer than we expected, but it was the perfect place to do it. I'm sure if we tried to deal with it in a hotel in Sydney or in their offices, we just wouldn't have made the ground. It was just for for that particular situation or that mandate was very successful. But it wasn't just that; it was about the fact that we were all together and we stayed in this one farmhouse type setup, and there was, you know, we ate together, and in the morning we ran and exercised together, and it was just a good place to get stuff like that done. I like working with Mark because he adds, or he fills the areas within my life that I lack in. And I think as you get older, you start recognising that, you know, these are the things I'm really good at, and I'm never really going to be good at these things. And Mark's been really helpful in a number of areas when I have particular issues around like the confrontation issues that I have with clients or something like that, particularly the confrontation that a client might have internally with another staff member. He's very good at dealing with those sort of things. So he fills some really big gaps in where my weaknesses are in terms of my business approach. So we've worked together really well in this virtual consulting type arrangement that we have. So he's a great feedback type associate as well. So when there's a big issue, I can go to him, and he's always got some profound approach to it, which inevitably ends up in some good result. So he's a really good sounding board. I think the most valuable stuff I get from Mark is around stop sweating on the small stuff, and focus on the things that matter. And I definitely have an issue around worrying about all the stuff rather than the stuff that matters. And when I deal with Mark, he's very good at focusing on the stuff that matters. I'm sure he cares about the stuff that is a little bit more insignificant, but gets that all done. But he's got this unique ability about working out what really matters and worrying about getting that right. And the other stuff, well, you know, I'm going to sleep fine tonight on that. Whereas I spend a lot of time worrying about all of it, you know, and you go grey pretty quick and you get old pretty quick worrying about all of that. So he's got this unique ability to just focus on the stuff that really matters. And as I deal with him more, you know, I certainly get a lot better at, you know, understanding that, and I get better at doing that. I would recommend Mark to any startup that was in a situation where they required some seriously quality thinking. And what I mean by that is there's a fork in the road. You either go this way or you go this way, and it can make or break your business. And as a startup, you shouldn't necessarily think you've got all the answers. So reaching out to people that have done this before, often they will tell you which way to go, and it'll mostly be right if you pick the right person. Now, Mark, as I said earlier on, is someone who's started and sold businesses and has done it all before. So if you're in that stage of a startup where you're about to maybe hit the big time, then bring someone with experience in, and use someone like Mark, because he could make or break your business. So from a startup perspective, I would use him, and just as an advisor to a business that might be already successful, that is struggling with making it to that next level. My advice to anyone is always bring experience in. Don't try and do it all yourself. And lastly, if any of, and I've seen this before so many times, and I've had it myself, where you've got confrontational issues through something that's happened in a business, in a partnership, something that's happened in a major sort of staffing issue, and a lot of it's got to do with sometimes politics, sometimes it's I've got more shares, you've got less shares, I came in early, you've done this, you do that, you don't add value, you've gone off the radar, whatever it is, and you need someone to sit in the middle and just work it out. Mark's extremely good at that. So any sort of confrontational, issues around personal matters, he's extremely good at sort of just dealing with that sort of stuff, and getting people to shake hands and say, let's just worry about the stuff that matters. This doesn't really matter. He's great at that.